Hello, adventurers, and welcome back to the Legend of Kelamentura recap series. This time we're recapping session 25, which is kind of the Inquisition wrap up and kind of start of the harvest festival celebrations up in Iceborne. Don't have a clever name for this one because fuck it. I don't know. Maybe I'll think of something when I come to upload it, but yeah, we'll see. So carrying on right from the end of the last session, the party had done their inquisitioning in and around Iceborne, and when they were heading to bed, had come across two figures that had had the shit kicked out of them in an alleyway. I'd picked the two of them up, recognized one of them to be a wine merchant. Bjorn recognized this as a wine merchant he had dealt with previously, and the other was the male elf twin that worked in the Last Hearth. So, they're sort of fairly familiar with these two individuals. The male elf wasn't in too bad of a shape, a bit bloodied and beaten. The merchant was, pretty fucking bad. Completely unconscious despite getting healed at the scene and what have you. So, okay, well, let's take these two. Ask them a couple of questions about who had beat them up and got some details and what have you. Got descriptions of their attackers, and then brought them to the temple. Arriving at the temple, a couple of guards spotted them, came over, going, what the hell happened? And the guards, Titus and Lowe, peeled off and went off and basically, okay, well, we have a description, we'll go off and we'll do a sweep of the area, sweep of the docks, see if we can find anybody matching that description. So they went off and did that. Rest of the party carried in Adran and the merchant. Adran kind of got put in, laid down in a cot, but you've got a few other bits of bandaging, salves, a sort of healing type thing. He wasn't too bad at this point. He's pretty stable, just a bit roughed up. He'll be fine with a bit of rest. Merchant, however, still pretty bad, stable, but unconscious. He was brought over, set in a cot, and the head orderly came over and was being assisted by the others and asking, what happened and everything. What happened to this fella? How did he come to be in this way? How long was he lying? And kind of going between Adran and everything else. Figured out was there maybe up to half an hour, maybe from 30 to anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. The guy had been like this, fairly recent, but still long enough without any medical attention. So the orderlies kind of got to work. Started, assessing his injuries, stripped him down to his long johns, kind of going any stab wounds, any visible injuries, checked him out, didn't find anything. But also kind of realized, we don't actually know anything about this guy, apart from the fact that he's a wine merchant. So one of the orderlies was going through his coat and whatever else on him. Just looking for personal effects, really. And after a wee bit of searching, actually managed to find a billfold on one of the his inner coat pockets. Kind of pulled it out, and when he pulled that out, there was a small leather test tube pouch type thing kind of fell out and hit the ground. Orderly picked it up, looked at it, went, the fuck? Opened it up, and there was a small there was a small amount of a brownie orangey powder type thing, which was handed over to the party for, what the hell is this? And Duchess investigated or did a check on that, rolled really well, and learned that it was Sood. So this guy is a Sood user. Sood, for those who don't know, is I think it's from the Critical Role. It might be from other thing before that, but I know it from the Critical Role universe. And it's basically a drug. It's a narcotic. So it's illegal, and this guy's a user. Which kind of gives a clue as to what the beating was for and how he came to be here. Excuse me. So kind of got, this could be drug related then. And the orderly kind of looked through the billfold and found guild papers, guild membership papers for the Traders Guild of Vesta for one Dennis Smith. So we now know the merchant's name was Dennis Smith. A few more questions with the orderly, kind of, fair enough. Well, he's here, we know his name. Come check back in the morning. Everybody that retired went to bed for the night. And the next morning, the party had a bit of a sit-down meeting, early breakfast. and decided what to do. Split up a wee bit. Achilles kind of went off solo to look for, like, I don't know, ne'er-do-wells, someone who might know something about, what was going on. Logue kind of goes off and is helping with the giants of the temple. And Achilles, Bjorn, Duchess, and Titus kind of initially go back to the temple to check in and see if there's any change. Head back to the temple, and there's been no change. The guy hasn't gotten any worse, but hasn't gotten any better either overnight. Adran is sat up in his cot having a breakfast and just kind of enjoying himself. Or so recovering, really, not enjoying himself. He's awake, he's conscious, he's still a bit sore, but he's going to be fine. And Bjorn goes over and questions the orderly and says, what are the extent of your healing prowess? Basically asked, does anybody have any restoration magic? And the orderly says, well, the high priestess might, but she's not here at the moment. Bjorn, okay, fair enough. He steps forward and he goes ahead and casts lesser restoration on the injured merchant. Kind of does a bit of a whole ritual thing with it. But the restoration is successful, and Dennis is somewhat violently kind of jerked back to consciousness, kind of full on back arching, deep breath moment. Rears up out of the bed, goes, "Oh my god, what the fuck happened?" And it's kind of it's as if he's conscious now. He's awake. He's alert. He's in a lot of pain, and he's very uncomfortable. Like being violently hungover is the best way I can describe it. So Bjorn then turned and says, taking the lead in the questioning, kind of says, "Well, what happened to you last night?" And the guy was like, "Where's my?" Came to realize pretty quickly, he'd been found, had been beaten. He'd been found in a pretty sorry state. And after learning that he had the shit kicked out of him, excuse me, and then realizing that his personal effects weren't on him, kind of was like looking at the people around him, was like, "Yeah, you found it, didn't you?" So they knew what he was up to. Kind of gave a bit of a life story and told him how he'd been using for years and they'd never sold it. "I'm a trader, but I've never smuggled the stuff, never sold it." Said that he'd stayed in Iceborne for longer than he had intended to. It was a bit of a podunk town. It was going to skip, and he had planned to leave a while back, a couple of weeks, in fact. But whenever the party came into town, kind of brought the giants with him. It kind of had a bit of a boost in the town. He decided to hang around for a bit longer, and him hanging around a bit longer caused him to basically run out of his supply. A few nights previous, or a couple of days previous, he had come out of one of the taverns and had gone into a side alleyway to take a hit, and had been caught in the act by a number of hooded figures who kind of quickly who twigged what he was doing, came up to him and said, "Yeah, don't worry. Hey, how are you doing, by the way?" And kind of offered to sell him a bit more. And so, "Yeah, don't worry. We have some more. Meet us in the quarry." So yeah, he told them that, yes, he went to the quarry, met up with these individuals, and they gave him a line of credit to buy. And he was in retrospect, it was stupid, but I wasn't going to say no. So he took the line of credit, took the suit, and went about his business for a couple of days, and he neglected to repay his creditors. And he says that, well, they caught up to me. Caught up to him the previous and beat it out of him. When they couldn't, they beat him, grabbed him, and they couldn't find a significant amount of coin on them that he owed them. They thought, well, feck it, we'll just beat it out of you. And as Bjorn says, but for the intervention of this fella, pointing to Adran, you could very well have been beaten to death. So you may thank him. It's like, oh shit. Merchant was a bit, wee bit kind of, "Oh, I fucked up" moment. A little bit on edge, realizing he was dealing with Bjorn, who was he's a paladin. He's from the Order of the Cleansing Hand. Bit of a militant, zealous order. But, excuse me. A little bit spooked when he realized that's who Bjorn was and who he's a member of. Whatever else the Bjorn kind of says. "Listen, I don't particularly care about the suit. I'll leave that up to the guards to decide what happens to you, but In my book, as long as you repay him, you leave tribute with the temple, you repay him, you know, in my book, you're all good. Just don't do it again, you idiot. Effectively. Meanwhile, Achilles had gone off and was looking for, like, I don't know, thugs, brutes, ne'er-do-wells, and started looking for thieves' cant. Like, it was on walls, wherever else, and found a couple of, like, a trail of, like, symbols, scratchings that led him to a pretty quiet part of the town, like the northeast corner of the town. Pretty quiet corner, not much about. Followed the trail and kind of got to, like, the general area where there might be a safe house. And was taking another look around to see, could he find, here's the entrance or something that was marked, this way here. Was looking around for a bit, couldn't quite find anything. And at that point, he felt a blade at the back of his neck, at the tip of a blade at the back of his neck, and a voice going, "What the fuck are you doing here?" And basically, he had a conversation, and turned out that the individual that he was speaking to was a member of the Avant, the Manchurian Thieves Guild. Achilles has met these individuals before, way back when, back in his early days of adventuring with the Found. So he's familiar enough with who the Avant are, and kind of triggered, and we've worked out who they were. And the two of them had a bit of a candid thieves' cant conversation, talking about, we found this in the town, we're here to investigate these guys in the Defiant, and what we found last night. I just wanted to check in with you, see if you knew anything about that. And the fellow says, yeah, we've been aware of it for a while. We found a couple of individuals who have been passed out in various alleyways or other dwellings, when they've been passed out from effectively ODing on this stuff. Like, no one has died yet, but, the found individuals are just passed the fuck out. Yeah, we're aware of it, but we don't have any leads at the moment. A few of them chat back and forth. There's a bit of friendly banter with the finger, that says rank, the finger of the Avant. Has a chat with Achilles, and one says, "Oh, you may get better at watching your back," because he was able to sneak up behind Achilles and put a sword to his neck. And Achilles looks at him, and then using his boots of spider climbing, walks backwards up the walls. "I think I'll be okay," and disappears. The member of the Avant, just sort of melts in the shadows and disappears. He meets up again with Bjorn, Duchess, and the three of them have a sit-down discussion, compare notes and decide that at nightfall they're going to go off and have a look at the quarry, see if they can find anything up there. Meanwhile, while all that's going on, Ariadne and Titus have made their way down to the docks to the open forge, and going to put in a real big shift. And over the course of they basically spend the full day, full 24 hours working their ass off in the forge. And Titus, Dean, working away at the smithy, and Titus kind of taking the lead on it, Dean aiding where he can. And Ariadne, I asked her to pick 2 skills, and she picked acrobatics and sleight of hand. As an Anvari dancer, she's very acrobatic, very dexterous, can move quite quickly. Rolled a pretty good acrobatics check, and also a good sleight of hand check. The acrobatics check was, I said, you very quickly get into the rhythm of the forge and the creation process, and able to work the bellows, pass tools, aid, assist, guide, kind of put yourself in the right position and really help the process along. And then the sleight of hand comes in, I says, you kind of work all day, kind of get into the night time, and fatigue and exhaustion begin to set in. And you're able to, with the sleight of hand skill, to help Titus reposition both his body out of the hammer blows, to, make small corrections to help to, fix imperfections or anything else. So I was able to help reposition and aid the process. Because of the two good skill checks, within the 24-hour period, I said they were able to complete 5 days of work with the assistance of Dean and Ariadne. So the 6 of the 7 days of crafting have been done at that point. So there's one more day, which is kind of like a finishing up type thing. And then Titus will have his 2 items that he's been working on this past while. Meanwhile, Lo, once again, has been back down at the docks and has been working away with his giant friends, Umagon, Gurmadan, pebble, granite, and rock. I can't remember. I've forgotten the name of the giants already. But it's the hill and the cloud giants is working with them on the temple. And he is approached by Vistra and Flint, the two other dwarves who work in the open forge, where he's told that they have got word, an agreement from the council that the giants can be armed and armored in return for them defending Iceborne and coming to the council's aid whenever they're requested to do so. So Vistra and Dane kind of get to work, measuring the giants, questioning them about, weapon preferences, armor types, and everything else. So that process has been kicked off. So the town is now going to have 2 armored giants, 5 armored giants to come to their aid whenever they so wish. That's going to be pretty bad. That's going to be pretty badass, I'm not going to lie. But, the party kind of, he spoke to me about it, he threw the idea out there, and I said, well, I'm not opposed to it. It's not a bad idea, so we'll see what happens. See how much I regret that. That's what he did in his day. And then, again, that night, like I said, Achilles, Bjorn, Duchess, at night, head up to the old quarry, which is slightly kind of the same, head into the keep and then turn left, which is, again, pitch black. Achilles can see fuck all, but is being led by his 2 friends. Kind of got up to the quarry, kind of get to the top of it, and there's a couple of sort of dilapidated office type buildings, like an office, and it looks like a mess hall barracks type thing at the top of the mine, the pit. They're in the process of being reclaimed by nature, and the whole area is just covered in just a coating of dust. And they come up to the mine, and they can just see, they have dark vision, they can just see the road kind of goes up to a point and then just disappears. And on approach, realize that this is a pit mine. There's a big old pit that just delves right into the earth. And there is a descent, and you're climbing down. There is a switchback path that you can follow to go down. But, it's not the most, it's somewhat treacherous of a descent. But they begin to make their way down, trying to do so stealthily. With Bjorn electing to carry Achilles on his back. Roll a stealth check. Doesn't go well. And Bjorn rolled a natural 1. Duchess rolled really well, but yeah, Bjorn didn't. Rolled a nat 1. Now, as you're making your way down, carrying Achilles, you put your foot down, put your foot on a loose rock, which slips from under your foot. You manage to throw your hand out, slam into the wall, let out an oath, and and yeah, the rock just scatters off the edge and clatters down the side of the pit like king coon coon, and just rattles and echoes, and well, there goes the stealth. So they'll go, fuck it, light a torch, go down, have a good look around, and Duchess finds a trail in the dust, which leads them off to one side of the pit, and they find the site where the deal must have gone down, because there's a lot of disturbance in the dust, like a number of people moving around. And they also find trace amounts of soot within the gravel. As a Duchess, she's using her dark vision, so it's not going off of sight, but it's going off of texture. Running her hands over the gravel, well, that's gravel. Oh, that's a slightly softer. That's not gravel. Oh, that's soot. So able to find trace amounts of it, and whatever else. Doesn't find anything else. Still doesn't find a stash site or any hidden entrances or anything like that. And Achilles tries to, let's go for the old faithful. Let's try and call them out. Tries to call them out, both in common and then thieves can't, but no one responds. There's no one there. So they go, fuck it, we tried, and go back to bed. So the next morning, everybody kind of wakes up. Well, I say everybody wakes up. The rest of the party wake up, but Ariadne and Titus and Dean have both worked through the night, and they're kind of finished up, and they're sitting down having a little bit of breakfast and a chat about, that was a real good shift we put in there. Should be really proud of that. And I'm really looking forward to going to bed and having a rest. And then Dean goes, oh, fuck, it's the festival today. And it's starting, it basically starts after breakfast, and they're like, bugger, we're going to be exhausted for this. To which Dean says, not necessarily. Gives a look around, make sure no one else is there. Dick dips into his storeroom and comes out carrying a large earthenware jug and 3 cups. Hands the cups out and uncorks the jug and pours out a dwarven concoction that's called Bright Eye in common. He says the dwarves use this to like stave off exhaustion. It's like supercharged. It's like 24 hours. It's like 12-hour energy basically. I think it's intense. It's a very viscous, slightly shiny liquid. It smells like medicine, herbal, and like lamp oil. It looks like lamp oil as well because it's just like sheen to it when it's poured. I'll take it, cheer, and neck it. And despite the smell, it's not an unpleasant taste. It's numbing and fiery on the way down. Very medicinal. Kind of burns the throat, burns in the stomach. And a few moments pass, and this chill sensation like kind of pulses in the stomach and radiates up the back, up the throat, and up to the back of the skull. And the skull, you can feel this like vibration set in from the base of the skull. Like it's chill, and you shake it, and suddenly you're absolutely buzzing with energy. The exhaustion is gone for 12 hours. So they go and meet up with the rest of the party. And, Dean kind of hands them off, and Ariadne is, what do you call the squirrel in Over the Hedge? Hammy? Yeah, you know the bit in Over the Hedge where Hammy the squirrel eventually gets Red Bull? Yeah, Ariadne is a wee bit like that. Hyper buzzing. Woo! Let's go, let's go, let's go! Dean kind of hands them off and says to Bjorn, yeah, don't worry, she's okay for now, just keep an eye on her because she's going to crash like a motherfucker in 12 hours, just keep an eye on her. It's all fun and games. And then they actually get into the festival proper. The Thrain comes down, Desmond comes down from the keep, full ceremonial gear, full garb, full regalia. And he comes down, he's escorted by his mother, his stepfather, Colette Thrain, his mother, and Conrad Thrain IV, who is his father's uncle, so his mother remarried. And they are the Baron and Baroness of Adakale's ward within Terran. As I described it, they're basically like Chief Justice in Terran, so these guys are pretty big deals. They also have a bit of a retinue of bodyguards. They have half a dozen Terran Harpers, who are legionaries, but the Terran Harpers are like an elite unit within the legionaries. So pretty badass. Kind of like, as I said, I think I described them as kind of like Praetorian Guard in terms of reputation. And then they also have, following the barons, there is an enormous full-blood orc in full plate armor that Duchess and Bjorn recognize to be the insignia of the Order of the Purifying Flame, another order of paladins that are effectively bodyguards for the council. Desmond gets up on stage, gives a rousing speech to open the ceremony and the celebrations, and the crowd's, buzzing to get going. And it's like, hey, come on, let's go, let's have fun. And everybody kind of disperses once the speech is given. Have a look around at the games on offer. There's a pie eating contest, there's a fruit dodging contest, there's a rocking thing, there's scything competitions. Everything's kind of, farm and agricultural themed. There's like hay bale toss, all sorts of things. And Achilles wastes absolutely no time in charging over and being the first in line to sign Bjorn up for the pie eating contest, much to his chagrin and the amusement of everybody else. So he gets signed up for that. Ariadne and Achilles sign up for the fruit throwing contest, in which they are the targets, and they enter as the targets, and the aim of the game is to not get hit. So they're basically making dex saves to not get hit by fruit thrown by the crowd. You pay to enter to throw the fruit. Of course, Bjorn immediately goes up and says, how much is it to enter? He just hands the guy the money and goes, give me the fucking biggest basket you have. I want to get this bastard back for entering me into the pie eating contest. And then Duchess enters the rocking competition, which is like basically going through a plowed furrow, whatever they're called, and removing rocks by hand. As I said, this is all like farming type games. And while waiting for everything to kick off, kind of taking a look around, having a mooch, Duchess and Ariadne spy a ring toss competition and kind of observe a couple of kids who go over and are tossing and having a go at the ring toss. And the older brother gets a good enough show, and this wee girl, like 3 years old, kind of goes up and gives this two-handed, like, like lobbing chuck to Horseshoe. It's everyone can tell this thing's just going to hit the ground, not going to go anywhere. And what Ariadne does is she casts Levitate on the Horseshoe and is able to, move it and get to the point where it lands over the over the marker. And the crowd kind of erupts into applause and is cheering on the wee girl, but everybody's kind of looking at this going, what the fuck just happened? Your parents are kind of like, oh my god, that was amazing. Our child can do magic. What the fuck? Freaking out. But Duchess Ariadne take a crack at that. Duchess goes first. Has a good crack at it. Manages to get the near one, the middle one, and trying to go for the far one. Doesn't quite get it. With one of her throws, rolls on that one and throws it wild. Trying a wee bit too hard. Throws it and it spears off in one direction. Thankfully, doesn't hit anybody in the crowd, but kind of heads that direction. So she unfortunately doesn't win any prizes. But Ariadne, kind of like second or third throw, kind of goes forward and gets a good couple of tosses, and then actually gets a ring over the furthest one, wins a prize, and takes a crudely crocheted owl bear, like a little owl bear plushie. So she got that as a little prize, and then disappears off. And then the fruit contest begins. So Achilles and Ariadne, everybody kind of runs over. Achilles, Ariadne, and you take their positions, you put into spots, the person who's organizing it, and they're standing there, limbering up, getting ready, getting all hyped. And then Achilles hears a familiar voice from his left and kind of looks over, and he sees Chiron, the captain of the Wily Goat that he met in the King's Head the other night. And on the far side of him is the Shook, the Aarakocra / Owlin quartermaster of the Wily Goat. So those two have also entered, and they're kind of competing with Achilles, Ariadne, and a few other bits and pieces. A couple of rounds go by. Achilles manages to completely dodge everything. He rolls incredibly well on his dex saves. I think he rolled like a nat 20 on a dex save, and like acrobatics checks. The guy was doing full-on Matrix flipping bullshit type thing. The crowd was amazed and wowed at everything. The Shook and Ariadne, the Shook and Chiron both got tagged at one point. Ariadne got tagged twice, but only after she realized that the Shook was one of the Crimson Monks. It's a monastic tradition from the north of Amberino. Like, she's heard of these people by reputation, but has never met one before. So kind of figuring out who the Shook is a little bit stunned and doesn't roll very well and gets tagged. She gets knocked out. And in the final round, we have Achilles, Chiron, and the Shook standing there. And the entire crowd goes, right, splits into three. And it's an absolute hell for leather free-for-all. And not a single one of them rolls well enough to dodge a single piece of fruit. And all three of them are peppered. Just completely covered head to toe in tomato juice, rotten stuff. Yeah, it's an absolute shit show, but it's all fun. And because Achilles was the only one to make it to the final round without getting hit, he's declared the winner. So he kind of turns to Chiron. The two of them have a good bit of good-natured banter back and forth, and this is that was a bit of fun and everything else. And Chiron, they help each other get cleaned off a wee bit. And Chiron then says, "Oh, I'm looking forward to sailing with you. Your friend over there, Lo, has already paid us to take you to the Wastes in a couple of days. So, looking forward to sailing with you and seeing what other skills you might have." Kind of intrigued. And the Shook and Ariadne also have a similar conversation, chatting back and forth. Kind of the Shook's kind of very upright, reserved. Kind of the opposite of Ariadne, the very bubbly, jittery, energetic monk that she is. The Shook is kind of the exact opposite of that, very po-faced and everything else. But you can't help but, be excited and happy that she's actually speaking to another monk, and she's actually met one of the Anvari, met one of them, has actually competed against them. So the two of them have a chat back and forth, and the Shook kind of leaves at one point, heading for the pie eating contest after cleaning themselves up. And just says, "Oh, I look forward to having a conversation later on to discuss her abilities." And she then heads off Chiron to meet up with the rest of the crew. Then we get into the pie eating contest. Entrants are called. Bjorn goes up on stage, takes a seat, sits, and he is then immediately to his left, sits down. This fucking enormous, like a 7 foot tall, maybe, black dragonborn, who turns to Bjorn and introduces himself as Krieve. And says, "Oh, I see our friends have already met and competed," kind of gesturing to Kyron and the Shuk within the crowd. As I look forward to doing battle with you today, friend. Claps him on the back and almost sends Bjorn flying face first into the table. It's a big fucker. And then the kind of all sat there, and Bjorn's like, "Okay, let's do this." And the person running the competition steps up, explain the rules, and says, you must eat without your hands, at which point Bjorn just shoots absolute fucking daggers into the crowd at Achilles, who was absolutely loving this, by the way. He's sitting in the crowd going, "This is the best thing I've ever done. I regret nothing." But Bjorn is absolutely furious. So Bjorn, Krieve, and the rest of everybody else does battle, sort of battle it out over a number of rounds. Start off with it was a sour cherry pie, then a sweet apple pie, apple and cinnamon, and then a sweet blackberry and sour apple, like Granny Smith apple and blackberry pie. So 3 sweet pies. It's doing con checks. They kind of increase each round. And they get to the 4th round, and it's by the time of the 4th round, it's Bjorn, Krieve, and a few other people. Other people have already dipped. The 4th round is a savory chicken pie with gravy, and Bjorn doesn't do well with that. He bows out. Krieve demolishes it, doesn't even flinch. Then the final round is Krieve and one other villager, one of the member of the town. 2 of them kind of brought forward, sat down, and it's not quite like the Bruce Bogtrotter bit in Matilda. not quite the same scale, but it's very rich, decadent chocolate, like Mississippi mud pie type thing is put down in front of them. 2 of them will absolutely go to town. Krieve rolls incredibly well. The villager doesn't. Krieve stands up, cleans himself off and takes in the applause and the adoration of the crowd, who start chanting his name, "Krieve, Krieve, Krieve, Krieve," and he's fucking loving it. The big fella's loving it. He comes over, commiserates Bjorn, and says, "Oh, don't worry, I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to get to know each other," and kind of walks away to find his friends and enjoy the adorations of the crowd. And then right before lunch, Duchess goes off, and the rocking competition is kicking off. So she goes over, joins a couple of the farmers or other competitors. They're kind of milling about, waiting for the thing to start, and they all go. And right at the gate, Duchess rolls really well. It was survival or nature. I can't remember which check she rolled, but she rolled a 19 plus whatever modifier was, like over 20. And I was like, "Oh yeah, you make a blinding start. You make an absolutely blinding start and spear off, and you get half of your farrow cleared before anybody else kind of gets even a quarter of the way done. You would get a blinding start. Really good thing." And he kind of turns around to look at the competitors, turns back, and rolls again. Doesn't roll great. Rolls below a 10, I think. It will roll like a 7 or something. Not great. She gets overtaken, and then one last push. Rolls okay, but not enough to win, but does come in second. A valiant effort from very valiant effort at rocking, getting her hands ready from a person who was a very noble upbringing and background. To which the winner kind of turns around and congratulates her, says, "I didn't think someone like yourself would risk getting dirt under the nails. Fair play to you." Claps her on the shoulder, big muddy handprint on the armor and none of the clothing. He brushes his hands and walks off. Duchess kind of looks down at her shoulder, waits for the fellow to disappear, and then just prestidigitation, just cleans the armor, brushes herself off, and they all head off. Lunch bells get sounded and everybody goes off, meets back up again to go and get some lunch and refreshment, and then see what the rest of the day brings about. So they're only halfway through the festival at this point. and we'll get into the rest of it in the next session. I'm really looking. I've got some good stuff planned for the next one. I'm sure the party are really excited about it, and we'll see what comes of it. But that's what happened the last session. I appreciate this is a long one. Yeah, a lot happened last night. A lot happened. I wanted to kind of cover it as much detail as possible. So thank you all for sticking with me for this far. And hopefully you stick around for the next one. But yeah, until next time, adventurers, see ya, stay safe, and take care handy.